A mochi moment from Tara, who writes, "For years, all my doctor said was eat less and move more, which never worked. But you know what does? The simple eating tips from my nutritionist at Mochi. And after losing over 30 pounds, I can say you're not just another GLP-1 source. You're a life source." Thanks, Tara. I'm Myra Ahmed, founder of Mochi Health. To find your Mochi moment, visit joinmochi.com.
Tara is a Mochi member compensated for her story.
Yeah,
Me too.
So
When I was
school.
still in corporate America, every Tuesday, that's when he releases
Yes.
his, and I'm like, the Tuesday, yes.
I know.
Just give me a little
Just
insight.
give me a little something to get through.
And
this
how much
week.
work that must be for him to
Right.
continue to do
Yeah.
that every week, year after year.
I think
Keep
That's a
providing us
lot.
tasty morsels
And
every single
because
week.
it's not like we said, it's not just the horoscopes. It's like all this information.
Right.
All
Yeah, he's
these,
got all
It's
these
a
other
lot.
things.
it's a big newsletter. And now
Yeah.
that we know how much goes into astrology of creating a semi-relevant short little excerpt for
And
one
he's doing
sign,
all of this.
Yeah.
that's a lot.
It's a lot.
Rob
That's a
Bresney,
lot.
we salute you.
We salute
do.
you.
Cause it's Witchcast.
All right, so hello, welcome to Witchcast.
Welcome to Witchcast.
I'm Emily.
And I'm Kate, and we're
We're
your
your
hosts.
hosts.
And we're like funny kind of comedians.
Is that how we're gonna bill
kind
ourselves?
of? Well, you know.
We're your hosts, we're comedians.
And we're also
witches.
witches.
Baby witches. Just little witches.
Baby witches.
Learning.
This is episode 6 of our first season. And we are looking into the very, very expansive subject of
And fascinating subject.
Of
Psychics and mediums.
Yeah, psychics and mediums.
I'm sorry, I talked
No,
over you.
no. We're learning. This is very, quick and hasty, fun research. And we brought in an expert, a very special guest, to kind of talk to us about her experiences. We have Emily Grote, a psychic medium, here with us today.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yay!
Oh, we're so glad to have you. Emily, would you be willing to tell us just a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah.
Gosh, where do I start? Well, I'm a psychic medium, which on its most basic foundational kind of level, I meet with clients who are in various stages of life, a lot of love life questions, a lot of questions around travel, problems with family, a lot of people wanting to connect with deceased loved ones. And that's basically it. And I love it. I love it. I feel like, I shouldn't say this out loud probably, but I would do it for free if I could. If I didn't have a mortgage, I would do it for free.
Well, it's your
really-
passion. It's your
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I think it's like the arts. Yeah, of course we would do it for free.
Right.
Should you be paid for your skill,
Yes,
time, and labor?
right.
Yes.
Yeah. But I resonate so much with my clients who are in a line of work that they are not in alignment with, because that was me for 17 years. And so I have a great sensitivity for people who are out of step with who they are.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of why I love what I do, is to help massage people in the direction of who they are.
Yeah.
And who they're becoming.
I didn't read this article, total confession, but in my quick research, I did see a headline that said that psychic mediumship is the new life coaching.
That's probably true.
Yeah,
I'd say a lot of what I do is, we'll probably get into it, but yeah, it's not just, oh, you're going here this year. And, it's a lot of really getting into people's personalities and what's holding them back. And because I'm just very sensitive. And so I can really help them get in the weeds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how long have you been practicing?
Probably about 5 years now. Yeah. Yeah. A lifetime of intuitive experiences that it was before 2013, but I had a really incredible transitional experience. When I was still in the corporate world, I was out to lunch with my friend Marge. I would come from Midtown and meet her. She worked somewhere in Chelsea, and we would just meet for lunch. And there was this kind of corporate trend at the time where you had to have a mentor. Everybody had to have a mentor. You should go find your mentor. And I was right in the space of, I'm unhappy. What do I do? How do I grow? How do I advance my career? And I was even I was a graphic designer and an art director. And I was like, okay, well, how do I become a creative director? And so I've got to get people to buy into me. And all this delusion that I was under. And I was even looking into grad school, and my eyes were just rolling to the back of my head. The thought of like even filling out an application was just like revolting to me. And so I met her for lunch, and I was walking across the street, and like sort of, I didn't even have a conversation with her about mentors. But as I was crossing the street, she was on my left, and this voice popped in my head, and I was thinking, the thought had crossed my mind, oh, I need to find my mentor. And I got this voice that popped in my head and said, she's standing right next to you.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh my God. Oh no, what does that mean? Because my friendship with her and my relationship and has always been, this is the thing we always talk about. We're always talking about intuition. We're always talking, we call them the ners from the Twilight theme. That's so we always just refer to these experiences that way.
That.
Yeah. It's really fun. And so when that happened, I was so sort of very left brain, but I have 3 kids and this career that I built, and how do I stop doing that and get on this other track? So it was very, what do they call that? A cognitive dissonance, this is not going to work. And so I literally just like shut it down. I was like, okay, that's crazy, and certainly familially speaking is not anywhere in my father's a pastor, but that's about as spiritual as anybody is in my family. So it was a leap.
Yeah.
And then what was finally the thing? I mean, I guess we can get to this later, but I'm so curious. What was finally the thing that kind of tipped you over to the side?
It's kind of interesting. I was able to, roughly 2012, my husband and I, so really desperately unhappy in my corporate job. And so we were able to like refinance the house and consolidate mortgages and bring payments down. And so that was sort of my escape hatch. I was able to leave my job. And so when I did that, I started taking metalworking classes because I make jewelry as well. And so I thought, it's going to be all about this jewelry business, and it's this is going to be the ticket. And I did that, and I still do it. But it wasn't going as quickly as I would want it to. And I was like, well, maybe I'll start thinking about this intuitive stuff. And so I took an intuitive development class with the Holistic Studies Institute, which is kind of they're related to spiritualism. They're related to the Spiritualist Church, the person who founded the institute. And I'm not a spiritualist. I identify with all their beliefs, but I just don't practice it. And so I took that class, and it was and I've obviously, like my whole life, I've been reading and studying, but not really, again, this cognitive dissonance, like, oh, this was just my interest or my hobby, in air quotes, but not really taking it very seriously.
Right.
So quite literally, like, I was doing the jewelry and, not having momentum with that. And then I literally just took this class for shits and giggles. And it was 3 solid weekends over the course of 6 months, roughly. And even after I was finished with it, I was like, wow, like, oh, this is much easier than I thought. It's really, there's just a switch in the brain, and it's just basically a decision. I'm going to do this in service or with intention on the behalf of someone else. Wow. Where I was just kind of accidentally experiencing my own intuitive stuff for my whole life. And then once I learned, I was like, wait a minute, she's just talking about quite literally using your imagination as a receptor rather than, because we tend to think of imagination as, we're generating something, or it's coming from the ego. But no, it's actually a space where you receive information.
Cool.
And so that I got from the book. But then when I took this class in kind of doing it practically, because we were sort of forced every weekend that we got together to just put with a person sitting next to you, and they would bring in a photograph of a loved one, and I just had this one experience is bubbling up. One of my classmates, she brought in a picture of her father, and I just closed my eyes, took some deep breaths, got into, I call it a meditative space, but it's just relaxation. That's it. And so these images came up in my mind of what's the word I'm looking for? I saw her father standing. It reminded me like of a home in Levittown, Long Island, just these little pillbox kind of houses, they're sort of petite. And I had this picture in my mind of her father in a tuxedo, kind of like tightening his bow tie or something. And I saw there was like a big window to the front of the house, and I saw a white, what's the word I'm looking for? A Rolls Royce. And I thought, he's getting ready for a wedding. Ooh, lightning strike.
Hello.
Exciting. And I thought, and so I said, oh, this is really interesting. And so I just told her everything that I saw. She was like, oh, that was my sister's wedding day. And
wow.
and then I found out she grew up on Long Island. And I was like, oh my God, it works. Like, it's just that easy. You just close your eyes. And so that was sort of like one experience where I was just like, oh. And so you just kind of, you practice and you practice and you practice. And so why did I make the switch? And so I took the classes and then I just kind of didn't do anything with it for maybe 6 or 8 months, and money was getting tight and credit card debt was getting bigger. And I thought, well, why don't I try it? And I was looking for a job, project management, or I didn't want to go back to graphic design. And I went on a couple interviews and I started seeing some clients, and it just I sort of was stirring both pots at the same time until finally this sort of made the decision for me. I just started getting more and more referrals and more clients. And so, that's sort of, it just gained its own steam.
That's awesome.
That's so cool.
That's really great. So we, as we discussed before, and as with past episodes, we're just going to kind of, again, very top line, very brief, because this is really, really big, go into the history of psychic mediumship and then into modern day uses. And, we have some questions for you just about your practice and what you believe. And I think, we're not expecting you to do any kind of reading at all. This is really purely an informational, fun, kind of podcast. We're just purely here to talk about the learnings, the world.
Yeah.
So, I have the origins this time around, so I get to go first.
Yay.
Which is good because I feel like I have just too much brain space to get this out. So, yay. Okay. Mediumship, psychicness. Okay. I kind of broke my research up into 2 prongs because I felt like, well, honestly, Wikipedia had 2 different articles about they did mediumship in one article and then psychic, history of psychic abilities and psychic practice in the other. But they actually kind of intertwined. So, basic definition. Let's start off where we always do. Mediumship is a practice of purportedly that's another thing. Okay, before I even go into this, there was so much about actually debunking and fraud and, basically just like actually-ing all of this. And I skipped all of that in my research, quite honestly. I touched on it a little bit, but like there was so much, I felt that could be a whole other episode. And my interest personally is not in that. There were, of course, tons of people in history that did a lot of weird, funny shit to pull tricks on people and commit fraud. Totally, yes, spirit hands, like things like that. The dolls, all of that happened. I'm not personally so interested in all of that. I mean, I think that's
definitely not what the podcast is about.
I don't think that's what we're about. I think everything we've done so far has always been, with a healthy dose of realism, because we're approaching this as novices, but like we're here to learn. We're here to, just get more information, and we're open vessels, and we just kind of want to,
And can I just add?
Yeah.
Skepticism is important.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's very important because you've got to be skeptical of your own experience.
Right.
And so I just wanted to, we'll get into that further,
I agree.
Really,
but anyway, so Wikipedia says mediumship is the practice of purportedly mediating communication between spirits of the dead and living human beings. Practitioners are known as mediums, and there are different types of mediumship, including spirit channeling and Ouija. That was like the first one. And then I was like, okay, but how does that differ from psychic practice? But a psychic is a person who claims to use extrasensory perception, ESP, to identify information hidden from the normal senses, particularly involving telepathy or clairvoyance, or who performs acts that are apparently inexplicable by natural laws. Although many people believe in psychic abilities, the scientific consensus is that there is no proof of the existence of such powers and describes the practice as a pseudoscience. So from my understanding in my research, basically, I took that to mean mediumship is specifically about communicating with the dead, whereas psychic abilities and psychic practices is really just kind of about any kind of intuitive practice at all, whether that be, looking forward into the future or intuiting something from the present or looking into the past. It doesn't really have any kind of like confines. It's just about using that ESP. Would you say that's right, Emily?
I would. ESP.
It was interesting that they were like so
That's
focused on
interesting.
that. Yeah.
Extrasensory perception. I guess that's what you could call it. It's so funny. And just to put it in a nutshell, what I would just say, because I get this question a lot from people who are interested in booking an appointment is, can we do mediumship and psychic stuff in the same meeting? Yes, it's all coming from the same place.
Mm-hmm.
There's just, I call it, this like big computer in the sky, or something like that. Yeah. And so, yes, it's all, for me, it just all sort of comes through the same space. So yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I feel like it was weird to me that the articles were so separate because this all did seem to me to be so related, and a lot of the stories and case studies from the history actually overlapped. But then I feel like it was maybe also because mediumship in ancient times and through history was very specifically about like that idea of the seance or using the Ouija board, like that.
Right.
Contacting the dead was like a very, very like kind of specific
right
practice.
Endeavor. Right.
Whereas psychic, practice is kind of more all encompassing. So I guess you would put that under
with tarot cards or with other divination techniques.
Yeah. So looking into ancient practices of this. Again, like astrology, the humans have been doing this since the very beginning of our existence. There are cave paintings by indigenous Australians dating back 20,000 years ago, some depicting skulls and bones and spirits and the afterlife. They also have cave paintings in Indonesia dating back a further 10,000 years. One of the early stories of mediumship that I got really into was the story of the Witch of Endor. This was in the Hebrew Bible. Basically, this guy, Saul, he was a Hebrew king. He wanted to contact the deceased prophet Samuel to kind of let him know about how this upcoming battle was going to go. The problem was, though, Saul also outlawed all practice of any kind of witchcraft throughout the land. So he was basically going back on his word because he was, I think, kind of sweating it about this upcoming war. So he found this woman who basically translated through, Hebrew. You could call her the Witch of Endor. She lived in Endor. She's a woman who lived in Endor. And she was kind of like, yeah, I can help. Like, she was kind of like a secret witch. She was, did some folk magic. And she did conjure, according to the text in the Old Testament, she did conjure Sam and screamed. This was a very big point in the scripture, that she screamed when the image of Sam appeared. And when Samuel appeared, he told Saul, yeah, this is going to go really bad for you. You're all going to die, and you're going to die on the field with your soldiers. And Saul was like, oh shit, this sucks. And the thing that's so funny is that there have been so many scholars who have tried to, decipher this text of like, was she really a witch? Did she really conjure Sam? Why did she scream? If she screamed, she must have not really, she must have not actually done it. It must have been God, because she wasn't expecting it. That's why she screamed. Like, the literal patriarchy of this bullshit is hilarious to me. It's like, no, if this story is true, she was a witch. He went to her, she was a medium of some sort, and she was able to kind of bring forth, summon the spirit or whatever. And the thing is, it was true. Saul went to war and he lost the battle. All his men died. And then we're not sure if he killed himself or if he then asked a younger soldier to kill him, but he basically was wounded and then just, he died in the field as well. So I don't know if that was a Scottish play thing again, where he kind of, fulfilled his own prophecy. Notice I didn't say the M word in your house,
Thank
Emily.
You. I do demand it.
I figured I would enchant it with the blackouts and thunderstorms lately. But yeah, so that is the story of the Witch of Endor, which I thought was really, really interesting. Going on, there's so many other stories. So seers, though, formed a functionary role in early civilization. They served as priests and advisors and judges. The Delphic Oracle is one of the earliest stories in classical antiquity of prophetic abilities. So the Pythia, again, probably mispronouncing a lot of these things, that's the priestess that presides over the Oracle of Apollo at Delphi. She was believed to be able to deliver prophecies inspired by Apollo during rituals beginning in the 8th century BC. And it's often said that Pythia delivered oracles in a frenzied state induced by vapors rising from the ground, and that she spoke gibberish believed to be the voice of Apollo, which priests then reshaped into these prophecies preserved in Greek literature. Of course, scholars think she was just talking gibberish and gave prophecies in her own voice. But what was super cool is that this position was a woman's position. It was served by a succession of women that were selected from a guild of priestesses of the temple. The last recorded response from a Pythia was given in 393 AD when the Emperor Theodosius I ordered pagan temples to cease operation. Again, right? We know this story. And of course, recent geological investigations think that ethylene gas actually might have caused this state of inspiration. But everything I read was like, here's what happened, but here's what scientists really believed what happened. So who's to know? And of course, we have Michel de Nostradam from 1503 to 1566, or as we know him, Nostradamus. During the French Renaissance period, he was a French apothecary and seer who wrote collections of prophecies that are now globally famous and rarely out of print. He's known for his book Les Prophéties. I took Spanish in high school. Anyway, I'm guessing it's called The Prophecies. Thank you.
Feels right. Sounds right.
The first edition came out in 1555. Taken together, his written works are known to have contained 6,338 quatrains or prophecies, as well as at least 11 annual calendars. Most of these prophecies dealt with disasters such as plagues, earthquakes, floods, invasions, murders, droughts, battles, all undated, which is like good looking on you, Nostradamus. You're like, this is gonna happen.
There will be a hurricane. You're welcome.
Whoa, like good, like that's so clever. Of course, like he's controversial, as is all of this. They give him a lot of credit for predicting many major world events, but and there's a lot of interest in his work still to this day, of course, but a lot of scholars, of course, believe this is the connections are made due to misinterpretations or mistranslations. But really cool. I love this. I feel like we should put together a book, or maybe Emily, you should put together a book of just like thousands of prophecies and just undate them. And
there you go.
And then you'll live on in infamy.
Ta-da.
But going back to a little bit about mediumship and psychic practice and what that is. So it also, it really gained popularity during the 19th century. I won't go too much into this in case Emily wants to pick this up, but Ouija boards, I didn't know this. They were around for a really long time, and it was actually upper class like entertainment. It was like parlor games basically for them in a way. There was a lot of fraud, which like I said, I'm not going to go into this. There was a lot of investigations about that during this time. I feel like people were bored. It was the Victorian era. There was not much to do.
They hadn't invented TV yet.
Exactly. They were like...
Not everybody wants to needlepoint.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's put on a show.
Yeah.
Plus also, your fingers, they get pricked.
So pricky.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different kinds of mediumship. The best known involve, a spirit purportedly taking control of a medium's voice and using it to relay a message, or where a medium simply hears a message and passes it on. Other forms involve materializations or presence of a voice or telekinetic activity. But a big part of spiritism and spiritualism, the medium has this role of the intermediary, right, between the world of living, world of spirit. Mediums can listen to and relay messages from spirits, or allow spirit to control their body and speak through them directly, or use automatic writing or drawing. Again, this is from Wikipedia. So Emily, please let me know how wrong or
with all of it. And there's people, you mentioned trance, and there's people who still do trance.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit too. Cool. That's really neat. This is also fascinating to me. So spiritualists classify mediumship into two main categories: mental and physical. Mental mediums tune into the spirit world by listening, sensing, seeing spirits or symbols. And then physical mediums produce kind of more materializations, apports of objects, other effects, knocking, bell ringing. And then, of course, like we talked about, the ectoplasm that, people they used back then. During seances, mediums are said to go into trances, varying from light to deep, that permit spirits to control their minds. I think that's very top. I think it's a very again, from what you've already said, this seems very boiled down, watered down kind of definition. But channeling is also seen as so channeling is the modern form of this old mediumship, where the channeler receives messages from a teaching spirit, an ascended master, from God or another angelic entity. But essentially, they're still awake. You're conscious. It's through that filter. But it's just kind of receiving those messages by being aware. Would you say that's? Yeah. Am I on point?
You're on point. And by the way,
yes,
I'm no expert. Well, I'm just a practitioner.
I guess I should say, am I offending you in any way? Okay, good. That's all I want to know.
Have we hit anything that's clearly wrong?
Yeah. As long as we're not completely off.
And even the stuff you mentioned that you thought might be watered down it's all good.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I just feel like, and this is something that I guess I struggle with, because I feel like this episode is a slight departure from a lot of what we've been doing, where our other topics have been either kind of specific areas or, larger areas, but all kind of within this witchy kind of world, or like pagan Wicca kind of origins, where I feel like this, like psychic practice and mediumship is really kind of its own thing in a way. Like it can be.
It can be overlap, sure. But
but it's really, and it's almost on a next level. Like, I mean, I feel like there's a lot of people who identify as witches or witch curious, and they, are into astrology. They're into tarot. They're into crystals. Like, even spells and potions, maybe. Like that's cool. Lighting a candle for something. Right. But this is kind of like, for me mentally, I think I view this as next level.
Right.
This is something you kind of really have to devote yourself to
actually practice. Yeah. I certainly know people that are in this sort of world that will go to mediums though, and or will go to psychics and like believe in it, or just in some way or another engage with it. But it's a different thing to, it's a less common thing maybe to try it yourself, but not that uncommon. Sorry.
No, and what I would just add to that is, any psychic or medium worth their salt, and hopefully most take this stance, is everyone's psychic. Everyone is psychic. Everyone can be a medium. Everyone. And so I tend to, my experience at least dictates, is that people who are into, say, tarot or astrology or baby witches or whatever you want to call yourselves, you all have it. And really your ability to receive information is, like I discussed in the very beginning, it's literally just a switch in your mind. Mm-hmm. That's really it. It's just either I believe these voices, or I discount them, or I ignore them, which most of us do.
Right.
I tell folks all the time, like, you're not the author of every thought that shows up in your head. You're just not. And so once you kind of, entertain that idea, that's sort of opening the door. And then you just pay attention after that. So yeah, everyone is psychic, and it's really only proportionate to how interested you are in it, or you study it and practice it, or you meditate and receive. That's really it. So if you are a concert pianist and you have zero interest in this world, well, then your whole experience is going to sort of be predicated on that.
Right.
Well, then maybe you just won't get as much information as the person who is. It's really that simple.
That makes a lot of sense. I feel like that applies to a lot of the stuff that we've talked about. Like, I think, it's again, what works for you. But if you're not willing, if it doesn't work for you, or if you don't believe in it, like, then it's not going to work for you. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's truly, it's all subjective.
Yeah.
It's completely a subjective art and science.
Yeah.
You're gonna get a lot of mail about that science work.
Give us the mail.
Yeah, bring it. It feeds us.
Interestingly, I mean, I don't know, have you read The Artist's Way?
I heard you mention, or
it's,
who mentioned it?
I kept hearing about it, and so I
Okay.
finally have been reading it, but they talk a lot in that. It's meant to be for artists that feel like they've got writer's block or
Right.
that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I was feeling kind of stuck a few months ago when I started reading it. Now I'm like working a lot, but I still am reading it.
Because you manifested that.
Thank you. Yes, I credit the book, I guess. But it's all about having that connection with something, with like the universe, or they call it good orderly direction. But just not thinking of it as like, I have to reach for ideas, but that ideas come to me, and trying to unblock that different purpose, same sort of
same
connection.
idea. Yeah.
No, I love that idea too. There's also a TED Talk by this author, and I can't remember exactly who it is. It might be Elizabeth Gilbert, but like who
is quoted on the back of the Artist's Way as
really?
crediting it.
Okay, so it must be her because
wow.
she believes that like it's not even from you, it's actually from some greater source, and you're literally, I like to picture it as like a spiral tube. Like you're the straw that like all this greatness is coming, just filtering out through.
And that's actually literal. You
really?
are quite literally a straw. But we'll get into that.
I mean,
it's more technical than that, but yeah.
I love that. Okay.
Oh no, is this podcast coming out in favor of straws? Because I think that's actually kind of...
I want to say too, there was a wonderful quote by Doreen Virtue, and I love her. She's like super flaky and so wonderful. And I read her, her autobiography, I guess it was, and she said something that spoke to me. So, because when I first started, I was so nervous. I was so anxious. Like, who do I think I am? How am I going to do this? And this person's coming to my home and blah. And she had this great line. It's not about you. It's not your information. It's just not mine.
Right.
So whatever, it's just not mine.
Yeah.
And this information is quite literally not mine. This is somebody's family member, their life situation or what have you. And so it's really helpful. Oh, it's not about me. That's right. And just, hope for the best.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
I think anytime you can take the ego out of things, the happier you are.
Yes, it's true.
Right?
Right.
Ego's such a bitch.
It is a bitch, and it frees you up.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Are you...
Oh no, I was going to quickly go into the mental, trance, physical mediumship, direct voice, channeling, psychic senses, clairvoyant stuff. But
just quickly go into that. No.
so much.
Go for it. I just thought you were done. I'm sorry.
I feel like I should mention people like the Davenport brothers and the Bang sisters. They were really big in this Victorian era where a lot of people were getting debunked and creating a lot of fraud. It was, the stuff they did was crazy. They would put like pictures of people's faces on dolls and then like have dark lighting and then behind a curtain and they're like, oh, it's your brother. And he's like, I don't have a brother. Or like, there's this one story of this like famous couple. I forget who they were, but like they were like, some like medium was like, this is your dead son who died in infancy. And he grabbed like what the face was. And it was actually the psychic's bare foot. He like stuck his foot out and he was like, it's your son. That's how I picture it. And he's like, I also didn't have a son who died in infancy. So there's a lot of weird stuff like that going on. But again, I think it was because there's just no television. But anyway, let's go into the different types of mediumship. So there's mental mediumship, which is a communication of spirits with a medium by telepathy. So they mentally hear, clairaudience, see, clairvoyance, and or feels, clairsentience, messages from spirits. This can be directly or with the help of a spirit guide. And then they pass that information on to the recipient or the sitter when they're doing a reading for a particular person. Do you still call your clients sitters, or is that kind of old-fashioned?
Old-fashioned.
Okay.
Yeah.
I figured. It seemed very old-fashioned to me. Then there's trance mediumship, which is a form of mental mediumship where they remain conscious during a communication period, mostly, but the spirit uses the medium's mind to communicate. So the spirit's using the medium's mind influences the mind with the thoughts to then be conveyed. So the medium allows, again, this ego to step aside for the message to be delivered. But at the same time, they have to be aware of the thoughts coming through and might even influence those messages, whether it be bias or just interpretation. In the 1800s, that trance mediums, that was very, very popular back then. And that's also when spiritualism was really kind of gaining speed. And it attracted a lot of female adherents who had a lot of strong interest in social justice. So a lot of trance mediums actually delivered passionate speeches on abolitionism, temperance, and women's suffrage. I
just have to interrupt because this just got triggered for me. I almost feel like, and this is not to cast aspersions on their trance abilities, but I almost feel like that was probably the only way for a woman to actually speak.
I think so. I totally think so.
Is to take on this other outer worldly, experience.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
They're like,
I have more about this. I have more about this in my bit, but also Carl Jung wrote about emotional intuitive personalities as being the sort of natural leaders of like minorities that are looking to make progress, and
that's awesome.
That a lot of people into that.
Yeah, we're so on the winning side. I just have to say, I love Jung, and I love that he keeps coming up through this
I
podcast
know.
because it makes me so
I have
happy.
a note just being like, Carl Jung, right?
Another t-shirt. Then there's, of course, physical mediumship, where there's it's defined as manipulation of energies and energy systems by spirits. So this is about perceptible manifestations. I think this is, to me, I view this as kind of older, like antiquated or like horror movie-esque, I don't know what your thoughts on it are, Emily, but this is like loud raps at the door, noises, voices, materialized objects. I don't know what this word is, apports, but it's in there. I said it earlier, but I feel like it's like an
apparition.
Yeah, maybe it's like a
so this is like seeing ghosts, or
maybe, yeah. Well, then the next thing is materialized spirit bodies.
Seeing ghosts or manifesting ghosts, like expecting them to come through during a reading.
They're perceptible manifestations.
Okay.
So I think it is about having them come through in the reading. It's not about Yeah, I think that's different.
Yeah.
From my brief research, like just chance sightings never came up. This was always about being
like
conjured.
There's a medium
conjuring,
who's
right,
gotcha,
okay. Right. Or body parts, right? Like hands, legs, feet. This was also a thing that they would like conjure forward of the person who's passed over the spirit. And the medium's used as a source of power for these manifestations. And by some accounts, this was achieved by using energy or ectoplasm released by a medium. Later, ectoplasm was debunked to be made by these people who were being fraudulent about it, with cheesecloth and butter and it's like muslin and like stuff like that. Again, I think to me, this just seemed like prop work. Like
bringing the idea home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then there's direct voice, that again, the claim that spirits are speaking independently of the medium. There's channeling. Western mediumship develops two different ways, either clairaudience or sensitives who hear spirits and then relay what they hear. And then other incarnation of non-physical mediumship, where the channeler goes into a trance or leaves their body, allowing the spirit entity to borrow their body and then speak through them. And then I already talked about the psychic senses, which I didn't realize that it's not just clairvoyance. I always just thought it was just clairvoyance, but that's clear seeing, which is the sight occurring in the mind's eye. But then you have, like I said earlier, clairaudience, which is clear hearing voices or thoughts. Clairsentience, which is clear sensing, having the impression of what the spirit wants to communicate or feel sensations instilled by a spirit. Or clairsentience, or clear feeling, which is a condition where the medium takes on the elements of the spirit, feels the same physical problem which the spirit person had before death. Clairalience, which is clear smelling, being able to pick up different smells. Clairgustance, clear tasting. And claircognizance, which is clear knowing. Ability to just know something without receiving it through normal or psychic senses. It's just a feeling of just knowing. Often a medium will claim to have the feeling or the message or the situation is right or wrong just by that feeling, which I think that's awesome. I didn't realize that that's what it was called, but I think we all have that.
Everybody
right?
has that, right?
Yeah, just like that gut feeling that you have of like, oh, this is not. This is not right, or this is good, or this is bad,
or even when you walk into a room, yay, nay, right?
Totally.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's basically where I think I'll end, because there's so much more, but I know Emily has a lot as well.
Yes. Okay. So I took a little note from the mid 19th century, but you basically said what I was going to say, which is that it was pretty popular. Modern spiritualism was becoming prominent in the United States and the United Kingdom. And the movement's distinguishing feature was the belief that the spirits of the dead could be contacted by mediums to lend insight to the living. And this is also from Wikipedia, but the movement was fueled in part by anecdotes of psychic powers. And they have some examples and that sort of thing, but we don't need to do that. There's a picture of one guy named Edgar Cayce who was, he made some very highly publicized predictions. His clients included Woodrow Wilson, Thomas Edison, Irving Berlin, and George Gershwin. So I thought that sounded kind of neat.
Is that Cayce, Edgar Cayce?
Oh yeah, Cayce.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I said Cayce, but
his he has an institute down in he's long dead, of course, but there's I think it's down in Virginia, huge community around Edgar Cayce, and he did a lot around health, particularly.
Yeah.
And in fact, my friend Marge that's I don't want to say her lineage because she's not really a practicing psychic medium, but I mean she is a psychic medium. She just doesn't practice it professionally. But that's trying to think that there was an Edgar Casey Institute. Oh, I know I'm probably getting that wrong, but it was in Manhattan.
Yeah.
Up until recently. Yeah.
And he certainly seemed interesting, and maybe he's something that our listeners can look into and find out more about his institute and find out more about him.
Yeah, I just Googled him. It looks like they're based right now out of Virginia Beach.
Right, it's Virginia.
Which is lovely. A lovely place to visit. Cool. Either way.
Yeah.
So stop by there.
Yeah, and then I'm going to skip over, because you basically just covered it. But
did I take your stuff?
No. I started a little early because I wasn't sure where you were going to end. So
there's a lot of stuff in that era
so
that's super juicy.
Did you cover Lily Dale?
No, you know what? I didn't, but I'd love to hear who Lily Dale is.
Yes, can we talk? Because I grew up near the Lily Dale.
What is Lily Dale?
It's a community. It's a community of psychic mediums.
I thought you, okay. Yeah. I thought you were saying it was a person.
I think it's Lily Dale Assembly. And it's a huge psychic medium community. And I don't know. And there was a wonderful book about Lily Dale. It was a journalist who is like a theology journalist or a religion journalist out of Texas, wrote a book about Lily Dale. And it was a great book. And it wasn't until I read that book where she talked about actually some sort of paranormal manifestations, like, spirit lights or things like this. And it wasn't until I read the book that I realized, oh my God, I've actually experienced those things. But we live our lives. We're sort of like this cognitive sort of dissonance, like, oh, I didn't realize that I've been experiencing that all along.
Yeah.
Crazy. And then I quickly saged my house.
Yeah.
Freaked me out.
Yeah. Sometimes, I'm an aggressive sager of the house, just in case.
I really need to do that. I was just thinking today, I'm like, I'm going to sage my apartment when I get home. I really need it.
Yeah. All right, so by the late 20th century, just skipping over the rest, by the late 20th century, psychics were commonly associated with New Age culture. Psychic readings and advertisements for psychics were common from the 1960s on, as readings were offered for a fee and given in settings such as over the phone, at home, or at psychic fairs. This is all, we know about this. So today, moving into the present, today the medium or the psychic is sort of a known figure, but if we're being honest, there are a lot of different and not necessarily accurate portrayals of mediums and psychics. And there have been, as Kate said, a lot of historical instances of fraud that may have made that perception not entirely unfair. But there are definitely people who are doing, who do and did and continue to do really interesting stuff with it. And readings based not so much on, like I said, telling people that there's going to be a plane crash generally in the next 2,000 years, but working one-on-one with people and making a human connection and doing readings basically based on intuition, like we were talking about. And I would say that that's become a big part of both the New Age movement from the 60s, this whole thing, and then also this latest wave of interest in witchery and, New Agey things in general, I guess, if you want to put it that way. But that I would say that we were part of. I was going to say, but you actually mentioned that you had taken a class like this. I was going to say, as part of this whole sort of bigger, broader movement towards maybe a little more self-awareness and introspection and interest in all this sort of arts and things. As part of that, you can actually take classes on developing your intuition. I'm not going to get too much into like the options for where you can take classes and different kinds of classes, but I am going to recommend looking it up. And there's also a bunch of Bustle articles about it that are really fun.
Oh, cool.
There's one by Gabrielle Moss from 2017 called "I Tried to Become a Psychic and It Was More Revealing Than Therapy." Which was really, it's well written.
Color me interested.
Yeah, right. Lots of people go to psychics, and I think if you dig deep, lots of people believe that they have their own intuition, and that they can sometimes sense things that will happen or presences they can't identify or otherwise have like a gut feeling, but they just don't necessarily recognize that as a psychic experience. Forbes releases article after article about like cultivating intuition for business and how like intuitive leaders lead better and all that sort of thing, but they would never be like, but I believe in. Or many people would not say that. But the reality is that, intuition and instinct are very much sort of an accepted part of our culture and our world. It's just, you don't necessarily, I think there are a lot of people that don't associate them because of this sort of stereotype of like like ghost whisperer with Jennifer Love Hewitt, where they're like, well, I don't see a ghost,
Great
so
show. Such a good show.
I'm not able to have a conversation with the dead, so
Right.
Well,
I think this goes back to what we've talked about since episode 1, where it's about who is drawing these lines in the sand, right? Like, who is it to say that like having a gut feeling about making an investment on Wall Street is any less, or is any more valid than somebody like, having a gut feeling and being like, you know what, maybe don't go on this trip right now, maybe hold off or something like that. Like, how is one more valid or less valid than the other? And I really think it's just like our like Puritan Christian patriarchal roots that are like, you know what, all the things that empowered women and people in general to just be their own free thinkers, we're going to put a whole kibosh on all of that. And as long as it's through this guise of like corporate capitalist male-centric America.
Science.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like science is bullshit. Like, oh, but you're going to wear, again, I keep bringing up this example because I think a lot of guys do this, of like wearing that jersey every time your home team plays.
Right.
And you're going to laugh at me for wearing a crystal that makes me feel better today.
Right.
Fuck you. Sorry.
Amen.
I'm just angry today. Anyway. Please continue.
Yeah. So I was just right. So intuition and instinct in a scientific sense are considered to be about like subtle perceptions and processing of past and current experiences and information. But Carl Jung actually wrote about intuitive personality types, talking more about this sort of more broad sense of intuitiveness as being about a gut feeling, as being about, understanding something that you're not necessarily able to say, I have these pieces of information and that's why I'm getting this result, which is Freud is very much like, the only way that you can have any sort of gut feeling is if you had exactly these experiences.
Freud.
I know, yeah, Freud's very hardline. Carl Jung, on the other hand, so he defined intuition as perception via the unconscious, and talked about using sense perception only as a starting point to bring forth ideas, images, possibilities, and ways out of a blocked situation by a process that's mostly unconscious. Jung said that a person in whom intuition is dominant, an intuitive type, acts not on the basis of rational judgment, but on sheer intensity of perception. An extroverted intuitive type, the natural champion of all minorities with a future, orients to new and promising but unproven possibilities. Yeah.
I think it's super cool. Well, yeah, this is like what? Like the Myers-Briggs personality test, right? Like whether you are intuitive or perceiving, whether you need to actually literally see something in front of you or you can kind of use your own intuition, right? Are those the two? Or is it judgment?
That sounds possible.
Anyway, but people do Myers-Briggs all the time.
Right.
In corporate America, they do them all the time. It's
Yeah.
Well,
they teach you to do it in your MBA course.
Exactly. Yeah.
Have you folks ever heard of Tom Campbell?
Sounds familiar,
you need to look him up. So he's it's amazing. Have you heard of Bob Monroe?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so long story short, Bob Monroe. So it's all related. So Bob Monroe was a man who lived in Virginia, and he was this sort of top line. He was an executive in the radio industry, something like that. Sort of entertainment related, but definitely broadcast. And so he made lots of money. And I want to say this was roughly 50s through the 60s. And he's living out on this farm in Virginia and had this crazy experience one night. He's in bed with his wife. He's asleep or he's falling asleep. But he did something with his body. And again, top line, someone's going to correct me, I'm sure. But he had an out-of-body experience. And this happened repeatedly to him, where he would like suddenly find himself hovering above his body. And he was just this regular person doing regular life. And suddenly he had this really crazy experience. And so what he did, because he had money, he hired these young physicists who either were just getting out of their PhD program or something like that. Anyway, this guy, Tom Campbell, had worked for him, and they did all of these experiments in the late 60s, maybe it was early 70s, I can't remember. But it was huge and really trying to understand these out-of-body consciousness journeys. And they discovered, and I think these were the folks who discovered binaural beats. So they developed binaural beats, and then through all this sort of work that they did, they discovered that you could not just do it spontaneously, and you don't need to do these kind of funny motions with your body. You could just do it with your consciousness through meditation and have these sort of out-of-body experiences. And so, again, just top line, because I have the books and I haven't And I even have the audio book, and it's just so dense. And I have 3 kids, and I just can't
No
can't do
need
it
for
all.
excuses. We totally understand
Oh my
that.
God, I really, and I love his material. It's super duper dense because it's very technical. It's very, very scientific because he's a physicist,
That's so cool.
but he's also a consciousness explorer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah.
And that for me is like amazing. It's
I
like,
love that.
because my whole entire life, I came up pretty much, I started this sort of self-discovery journey in the 80s, and it was all about, and I mentioned Doreen of Virtue before, and I love her, but it was a lot of this stuff about angels and guardian angels and angels and angels and angels. And I was like, I don't fucking have any angels. I don't know what you're talking about. I just get information. I don't know how I get information, but I'm disconnected from this very flowery sort of experience that people are describing. And
Angels
that's
were
why
so
I
big
thought,
back then.
yes, it was, and it wasn't just angels, but it was this very ethereal, gauzy, and I didn't know what the hell these people were talking about. And so it took me many, many years to realize, oh, wait a minute, that's just style.
Mm.
Mine don't come through that way.
Ah.
And I landed with Tom Campbell, and my mind, when I found him, was just completely blown. He's got wonderful talks on YouTube. They're super dense, just warning everybody. But it was such a great validation because it was like, oh, he's done this extraordinary work and just making sense of myself, helped me to make sense of myself. But now, of course, he's completely cast out of the whole science world, but he has a lot to sort of share and explain. But there is a dovetail, between the world of science and metaphysics and paranormal. And he describes it in a way that just sort of says, oh, well, no, it's all normal.
Yeah.
It's all normal.
Right.
And
And we just don't maybe understand it.
We
all
don't
yet.
understand it all. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to be unpacked, but just wanted to share that.
Ooh, we'll have to check that out.
I'm
Huge.
excited. I have them up on my tabs already for later.
Perfect. Where was I? Yeah. So anyway, I ended up going down a whole rabbit hole of thinking about intuition as a phenomenon and, interpretations of signs and visions and feelings and how we, don't always listen, or sometimes we do, but it's, in different ways, or we think about it in different ways and interpret it in our own way that makes sense with our own sort of, cognitive dissonance of what we're willing to believe. In the modern sensibility, psychics and mediums are probably one of the more prevalent sort of non-traditional new agey characters that appear in pop culture. But because of that, I think that's actually resulted in more misconceptions about the art and its practitioners than maybe anything else. Because we've got things like medium, ghost whisperer, shows like Psych that are really like, here's a guy who's, he can see what people are thinking by what they're behaving, and the mentalist and all that kind of thing. And like,
right, cold reading.
Yeah. And public figures like Miss Cleo, who we love, but we all know the truth about. And then things like Long Island Medium, which I actually love Long Island Medium, but I accept that it's entertainment first.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Or like John Edwards.
Yeah. And so, of course, all of these different things present a really wide variety of versions of what it is to be a psychic or to have a psychic experience or to be a medium. And so this is really most of what I ended up talking about with the current stuff. So I'd like to toss it over to you to talk about your practice and what you believe and what you've had to deal with in terms of, do people sometimes come in with other expectations? Or?
Well, it's kind of interesting because I think a skeptic probably doesn't want to pay my fee.
Right.
So that's great because I don't have to really deal with them.
Yeah. Why are they Googling in the first place?
Exactly. Although that's not entirely true because I have had just one particular experience stands out where quite literally someone just came in to test me. And I think their desire was earnest. They had an honest desire to resolve something, but they quite literally presented it in a way, it was like flashcards, like, I'm going to test you on this. And I was like, I got the bad feeling, right? Like after like literally a minute. And I was sort of new enough at the time that I was just like, all right, I'm just going to keep trying. But I'm just going to say this really clearly. I'm an awful test taker. I did terribly on the SATs. I had to take my driving test multiple times. I don't test well. And so, because it just makes me anxious. And if I'm anxious, that's just not going through.
Right.
Or even just folks that I've had interesting experience where that was a really unique experience. But even just folks that are, what's the word I'm looking for? anxious.
Mm-hmm.
I had a really interesting, that's why I don't do gift certificates.
I saw that on your website.
Yeah.
I think that's really smart.
Yeah, because especially with mediumship, I had a client once. It was such a sweet and earnest offering. This couple, they were getting married, and the fiance bought a reading for his soon-to-be wife, and it was with the intent of bringing the deceased mother in. And it was like literally like 2 weeks before their wedding, and she came, and she was paralyzed with fear. She was absolutely frozen. And just, I got buckus. It just wasn't good. Nothing good so came in.
Yeah.
And I realized after that, like, that was probably traumatic for her. And it was certainly not comfortable for me. And I realized, oh no, there needs to be buy-in, right?
Yeah.
The person who's, looking for the information is probably the best person to be buying the reading. So I'm always like, sometimes I'll, it's just, it has to be a conversation. I'll talk with people and, oh no, they've always wanted this reading. And oh, all right. Okay. As long as that's kind of clear. But I don't know how others work, but my when that does happen, when things are just either off for me or off for my client, I always just own it and say it's me, because that's my job. But I refund them because it's just why.
Yeah.
That's
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I also I don't let things drag on either. I'm not going to sit there for 20 minutes trying to like extract it. If just nothing is coming out, I own it. I'm just like, hey folks, it's just not a good day for me, or maybe I need a nap, or maybe you're really suspicious. I don't say that. But maybe it's you. And it is, it is a dance. It is it's an energetic relationship. And oh gosh, the funniest thing I just had recently, this was like 2 weeks ago, and I even have this on my website too. These folks came in high. They were absolutely stoned.
Oh yeah, I think I saw it. It was like, please be sober.
I did see that. Yeah.
Right. I mean, antidepressants, anti-anxiety, that's all, that's one thing. But if you're coming in like either tipsy or like, maybe not.
This is a waste of your money more than it is. I could give you the reading, but you're not going to get much out of it this way.
This is so funny. This kind of, it sounds like therapy, right? Like you have to be, the participant needs to be willing and open to get any benefit from it.
Exactly.
Or getting a tattoo. You need to really want it and know what you want.
I've had some folks that are just basically nervous, and it's fine, because it really is about the heart. It's about open-heartedness. And you can be, can't be frozen and anxious because your heart is closed. But if you're just even baseline a little nervous, well, sure, it's still going to work. But it's a dance. It really is sort of a dance. Yeah.
Fascinating. You must meet so many different types of people. And then because you mentioned this a little earlier, but you not only are you a psychic medium, but you also are kind of like an empath. Like you kind of have to like it's like a therapist or a doctor, you have to kind of also see, I guess, how the person is when they come into the room and how they're feeling, and be able to cater to that. Right?
Yay and nay. I mean, some folks will walk in the room and they just, they kind of want to unload. I'm like, stop. Yeah. That's not how I work. You need to zip it, and because I got to do my thing, because I don't want to be led. And I find I'm more comfortable. I don't do readings for friends and family. I don't do readings for acquaintances, because I don't want to, because it's natural. It's a natural inclination. They're like, oh, well, I know you went to Brown University, or, and you just kind of pull on a thread. That's just a natural thing. I actually just had an interesting experience recently with a client. You know how Facebook or Instagram, like they dig into your email. I don't know how they do it, but these algorithms or whatever, like, and I'm emailing with a client, and then I'm in Facebook on my personal account, and it brought up the client's face. And I was like, delete. Like, I don't want to see anything. I don't want to be influenced.
Wow.
So anyway, so it is a delicate sort of thing. And certainly being on social media doesn't help, because I'm not at all tempted, because I don't want to know. Because I want it to just kind of flow sort of effortlessly. And otherwise I'm trying. Actually, a client got to me, or a potential client reached out to me once, and they were like, well, I couldn't give them an appointment for like 2 weeks. And they were like, well, how do I know you're not going to do your homework about me in the meantime? And I was like, oh, honey, because that's work. I don't want to work. Like, this is not work to me. This is really, that's like, I did work for 17 years in corporate America. I don't want to work anymore. So this is sort of the antithesis of that. It's the opposite of just me showing up and being myself and kind of letting things kind of flow through. And that's sort of the best way for me to kind of receive
That's
information.
Really lovely. I love that.
Yeah. Why do you think? I mean, this is so broad. If you don't have a good answer, don't worry. What would you say the benefit is of doing a reading, or why do you think it appeals to people?
Oh, well, gosh, I'm just thinking from experience. I mean, most people are coming at some sort of apex or juncture. They're really just trying to make a decision about go left, go right, or this relationship, and I can't quite figure this out. And a lot of what I do is kind of help people to turn in on themselves. Yeah. And, sometimes they're answering their own questions, right? And that's not necessarily psychic ability, but, here's just one example. I had a client probably a year ago, such a fascinating story. She was engaged. And I said, say no more, just give me a picture. So she gave me a picture of her fiance. And I look at that and I was like, I just didn't see the connection. I just didn't see it. And I don't remember the imagery. So just very briefly, and I'm sure every psychic or medium is a little bit different, but for me, I get metaphors and symbols, a lot like Jung, right? So things that make sense for sort of my sensibility or through the prism of my own consciousness, I get information. So maybe I saw, I'm just making this up, but for example, maybe I saw that they were he was on the left and she was on the right on a piece of paper, but yet there was a tear in the paper, right? Mm-hmm. So something like that would, okay, well, maybe you're not on the same page, so to speak, right? And so something like this came up. And so I told her, I said, I'm not telling you have free will. Mm-hmm. I'm not telling you not to get married, but this is what I'm seeing. I'm just not seeing you guys on the same page. And she was like, oh, and then she proceeded to tell me the story about how she went to the Midwest because that's where she's from. And she was going back for the holidays. And so it's cold. This is the Midwest. And she went outside to get like a log for the fire. Her family had a fireplace. And she goes outside and she picks up this log. And out of nowhere, this bumblebee comes and stings her on her ring finger so badly. A bumblebee or a yellow jacket or something.
Some bee, yeah.
She had to immediately take her ring off. Her whole finger swelled up for like 2 weeks. And I was like, bing, 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 bing.
Wow.
I'm like, so how, and you're coming to see me because, So I'm just affirming for her
what her
on this immediate impression, just looking at this photograph of this, fiance, to kind of turn her in the direction of herself. Like, you just received a pretty loud piece of information from the universe.
That's really loud.
Up to you.
Well, and if you go, well, there's no problem, ow, my finger, then maybe there's no problem.
Well, and then it just kept going on. And she proceeded to tell me that they'd been together for 7 years and she found out for the last 5 years that he was an addict.
Wait.
Right. It was a lot of stuff.
Yeah, so why was she talking?
Right.
Yeah,
but when you're in a 7-year relationship, right, and your intent is to be married and all your families have met, and right, there's all this investment. So it's very hard to see the forest through the trees for something like that. Mm-hmm. So that's just a little small example.
So sometimes it's like a gut check where it's like, here's my gut. What's your gut?
Right.
I wonder how many of your clients do kind of come in already with a feeling of like what they want to hear.
And what they don't want to hear.
Exactly.
Yes, which is why I have on my website very, very clearly, you might not hear what you want to hear. Yeah. You're going to hear whatever comes up.
Right.
And that's hard. And I always preface it saying, you might not want to hear this. But this is what I'm getting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk a little bit about the waiting period that you mentioned on your website. So you say that you think it's best if you're wanting to contact a deceased loved one to wait about 6 months, right?
And 4 to 6 months roughly.
4 to 6 months. And I wanted to hear why that is.
Yeah. It's you remember I referenced earlier the young woman who came and she was so frozen with anxiety. Right. So any sort of really super intense feelings, emotions, it's for me sort of like it can be a little hard to wade through. Mm-hmm. And so, it's just, for me, it's just let the dust settle a little bit and then I can sort of see, what's going on. So and that's just born out of experience. And that young woman was part of it too, even though her mother had been deceased for a long time. But any sort of intensity, it can sort of drive expectation. Mm-hmm. I think when there's been a little bit of sort of dust settling, it's just easier for me. And I'm sure there are mediums who can knock it out of the park after a week, and then there's others that can't.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
I thought for some reason in my mind, I was like, oh, well, the spirit needs to cross over and it takes some time for, I don't know. I came up with some little like reason.
Yeah, maybe that's part of it too, but I'm more practical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I'm,
just
I'm
really
not
about-
really,
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
I'm not all that concerned about what they're up to. I'm more concerned about my client who's in front of me. And that's because it's the power of this present moment that's the most important thing. Trust me, all spirits, and most people have the question of, are they okay? Let's just say this for the record. Yes, they're all okay. You're not okay, but they're okay.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
That's generally and there might be some exceptions to the rule, but that's basically.
I love that idea though. I really want to believe that like after death, like a lot of the mortal concerns that we have kind of whatever happens disappear.
And what I want to touch on again, because not to just really blow up Tom Campbell, but what he talks about, and I think is really, it's just sort of a helpful shift in how we think about this, is he talks about our reality. He's got all these incredibly wonderful acronyms that are incredibly difficult to learn, but he calls it the PMR, which is the physical matter reality. And so it's a virtual reality. We're literally like because I believe what he's talking about, just because I've had this experience with it. So the reality that they're in is just, I forget what the acronym is for it, but it's just the death reality. But there is reincarnation. And so they are there for this sort of suspended, whatever you might call it, purgatory, or, some other traditions will call it certain things. But regardless of how long the person has been dead, they're still there. The impression of their life is still in this other dimension, right? Mm-hmm. That we've talked about. That's why it's all still accessible. Mm-hmm. And so I just love his sort of language around it, because he talks about it as this virtual reality. He talks about, because he's a scientist, he doesn't say God, but he calls it the larger consciousness system. So we are part of this system. Each of us is individual units of consciousness. And so, that's really helpful, because it's very dry. It's very, it's very scientific sounding. Mm-hmm. I'm sure some people will pull it apart. But for me, it's much easier to think about these things in these terms, because for me, that's very much what this is like. It's literally like opening a laptop and going to Google and just pulling this information down. I don't know. But
I love that. Yeah, no, it's super helpful. Yeah. Oh no, I'm fascinated. We could talk about this forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know on your website you talk a little bit about New York State has the law, or they classify this like psychic mediumship
as entertainment.
As entertainment.
It's really great for taxes.
And you talk about it, being an extension of your spiritual life practice. And I'd love to hear about that distinction and how you feel about all that.
Well, it's
all of that.
funny, because I think about it now and I think maybe I really ought to go back and edit that statement, because my feelings around it have changed a little bit. And so when I first started out, I felt very precious about all this. Like, everything's just got to be saged perfectly, and everything's just got to be just right. And I have to be wearing my crystal when I'm doing a reading, and And I'm a whole lot less precious about it. It's because I'm thinking about it more like accessing Google. I'm just pulling information down from the system. And so my feeling about it now is, yes, it's most definitely a part of my spiritual life practice, but at the same time, I want to just impress upon people that you are trusting someone else's access to intuition rather than your own. Mm-hmm. And so if you outsource your connection to the divine feminine or to intuition or like your own psychic ability, then it's probably safe to just call it entertainment. It's probably the safest thing to do, because I tell my clients, especially after I've told them something they don't want to hear, I could be wrong. I'm not always wrong. I'm not wrong a lot, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
And I really just, we talked about psychic classes, and someday I'm going to have a class because I really, really want to impress upon people, and sort of teach them what I know, and just how easy it is. It's just right there. You just have to make this leap. And, after I sort of figured all that out for myself, I was like, I literally had this moment for like 48 hours. I was sort of in this suspended animation. I was like, why isn't everybody doing this? Why isn't everybody doing this? And so, because it took me 40 plus years to get to that point, right? It's an evolution process. So
and imagine it's also scary. I think to me, the vastness of my own mind scares me. Like the abilities of my own mind scare me.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you're playing with astrology and if you're playing with tarot cards and if you're playing with rune or, any other divination technique, you're 98% there.
Yeah.
You're really, and so I personally love tarot. I love it. I just love pictures. I'm a very visual person. And I have like 47 decks, not that many. I have a lot of decks and I use them for myself because sometimes certainly doing this for myself is sometimes difficult at times. But it's learning a whole nother language. I don't want to learn a whole, that's hard. I'd rather just listen to myself, because it's all right there.
Yeah.
Anyway, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to go now.
No,
I could talk about this forever. I have actually so many more questions.
Just for listeners that are interested in tapping into this, what would you recommend they do?
Oh, gosh. First, meditating is really helpful. And not that information is necessarily going to come through in a meditation, but just meditation does is just help you to shut up, and just even the practice of learning how to be quiet. And I get the chatter too, constant. It's just constant. What you're doing is you are sort of indicating to the universe, to your guides, to whomever, that you're willing to be quiet. And so outside of meditation and the other 23 and a half hours of your day or whatever, just pay attention. And like I said earlier, not every single thought is of your own making. You're not the author of everything. And so this is a really important distinction. One of the things that I kind of figured out, because it was a big burning question for me. I tend to be a very anxious person. And so for me, I never went so far as like OCD, but I could see where I could have a problem with that, a little too much checking of the stove. If you have a baby, like everything gets a little crazy. Yeah. But I was like, okay, well, what's the difference then between anxiety and receiving a message? Yeah. That's a huge, right? And so it took me a long time. But what I was able to sort of distinguish for myself, and again, it's very nuanced and everyone has to figure it out for themselves, that intuitive stuff, information, whether it's an image in my mind or, because that's primary for me. I tend to be clairvoyant and what's auditory, clairaudience is hearing things, is that that tends to feel like it comes from the outside in. Like it's very much like a boop, like a magic wand. Somebody just tapped on my head and suddenly this thing just showed up. And so instant reaction to that is to undermine it.
Right.
That doesn't make sense. Well, that's never been an issue for me before. And your mind just automatically tries to reduce it. And so that's sort of a little bell. Whenever you sort of get something that feels not organic to you, that just feels like it comes from the outside, and then your sort of immediate cultural reaction to it is to diminish it, that's a hint. That's a big fat hint. Versus your anxiety or stress, which always feels like it almost feels like bubbles up from your body. And so the body is just a helpful place to check in, like, did that feel like it came from the outside? Did it feel like it's something I'm churning about? And that's helpful.
Yeah, that's super helpful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. Good. I've never had that to cleared for me.
Yeah.
That makes me feel a lot better.
And again, so it's a very subjective, right? Yeah. You have to literally, I always tell folks, play with, and this is another helpful tip, is to, because we all have a relation. I don't care how atheist or agnostic anybody is. Everyone has a relationship. Those gut reactions, whatever you want to call it, everyone has a history with it. And so use the little notes on your phone and just start taking a deep dive. Okay. And what should be probably the most powerful thing for you are the points in your life where you didn't listen. Because we learn biologically, our brains, we just learn more from pain than we do from joy. Yeah. So really helpful to just start taking a deep dive. And then once you start taking an inventory, you'll have, you're only 30 something. So you only have this list, but you can start really like, oh, really? Look at that. I found that was like a big turning point for me. Like once I was like, oh my God, I've had a lot of experiences, a lot more. And even just a really small things. Like I thought of someone and they were actually in my email box, or something like that. It all matters. So paying attention just to everything.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really good.
Yeah.
I need to do that.
The only other thing I wanted to run by you is there anything else that you feel like we haven't covered that you feel like it's super important for people to know? I mean, I know there's so much.
There's so much. I talked about Tom Campbell. One of the things that he just says so succinctly that I love is that, and I don't know how proportionate it is to your ability to receive psychic information, but what he talks about, which I just love, I just sort of knew it intuitively, but he put this perfect sort of spin on it, which is, his quote is, grow up, become love. So growing up is what? Having a little more integrity, being more honest or kind or compassionate, but also not being a slave, either. Self-care is really, that's taken me many, that's a whole nother episode, many years to, because I'm an empath, and I shouldn't identify as an empath necessarily. I don't use that in my practice, but I'm super sensitive.
You're an empath. Empathetic person. And yes, self-care and actually applying this all to myself, kind of late in life for that. And really a lot of bleeding out of energy as a result, and trauma. But anything else I want to mention? I have found with my own intuitive impulses that it will nag me. They will, and then I start to cross into this territory. Okay, well now the nagging is making me anxious, right? Now, wait, it's the cart before the horse, and so, but it'll keep pinging you. It'll keep, if it's important, it'll keep pinging you, and you can choose to listen or not. And I urge everybody to listen.
Well, great. Well, so shall we? We usually do a card pull.
Yeah, some sort of card. I have lots of. I don't have as many cards as you, but I have a crystal deck and a few different tarot decks, and then I also brought. So I have. We pulled a card from this before, my new Vision Quest deck. We could do that, or we could also pull an animal from the Druid Animal Oracle deck, which our guest from last week, Rowan, gifted to me years ago.
Lovely.
So it's your choice as our guest.
Vision.
Okay. So I'll let you shuffle.
Fun. Oh, that's fun. All right. So the way everyone I'm sure has their own style, but I just kind of like spread them out, and then I just see where am I going to land. Ooh, Son of Earth.
Isn't that gorgeous? It's so pretty. We'll post a picture of this. Why don't you, here, I'm going to look it up, but at the same time, do you want to speak to anything it's giving to you?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, it just really, for me, just feels like it's talking very specifically to, right, you think of what we should describe what the card looks like. There's this lovely Native American, looks like a gentleman who's carrying bounty. It almost looks like, what do you call it? Like a cornucopia practically. Yeah. So for me, it's gifts of the earth, right? And so he's obviously the bearer of these gifts, but I think of our intuition as being a gift of our universe, or however your consciousness, just to help us navigate our lives. And so that's the correlation that I'm making.
Yeah, I think that's totally right. I don't even want to read the document because I think you totally got it.
Did I?
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah.
Do you want to hear it?
I want to hear it. I'm curious.
I'll read the in essence, the quick thing is trust, serenity, being considerate, enjoyment, love of nature, endurance, earthiness, faithfulness. Sometimes too inflexible. But it goes on to talk about ripeness and yielding the bounty of the harvest and being the beneficiary and sharing that wealth.
Right.
So I think
it's, and I mean, if you just think of your own psychic abilities, this enormous bounty, and are we paying attention to it? Are we even receiving it?
Yeah.
Do we even know it's there?
Yeah. It does seem like he's also giving it. Like it's not like it's for him. It seems like he's collected it for others to share. Yeah.
He's a straw for produce.
Right. But not a plastic straw.
Not a plastic straw. He was a straw.
Well, thank you so much for being on this show.
So much for
this has been
me.
amazing. I want to talk to you forever.
Yeah.
But so if people want to get in touch with you, if they want to, book you or learn more, where can they find you?
On my website, emilygrote.com. Yeah, it's probably the best place.
Great. And it's EMILYGROTE, correct?
You got it.
Yeah, and you should definitely read her story and everything because we didn't even get to talk about
the little yellow house.
It is a great story, and you
yes,
should check it out.
I love your website. Yeah, please go check out her website.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And I guess that's it for now. And until next time,
Hex yeah!
'Cause it's Witchcast.